The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Hello, I'm Colonie Town Judge Peter Crummey, and welcome to Benchmark. We'll explore a variety of issues involving our legal system, our justice system, and how they intersect with the citizens of the town of Colonie. Today, we are truly fortunate to have Renee Merges as our guest. Many of you are well aware of Renee's background and experience in the practice of law throughout the Capital Region and in the entire state of New York. Renee Merges served for over 30 years as part of our Albany County District Attorney's Office and is currently a full-time professor at Southern Vermont College. And welcome, Renee.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you for joining us here today. It's so exciting for all of us to have you here. And certainly our 30-minute time would never do justice to your background and experience and what you've had to bring to all of us in the practice of law throughout our community. And it's almost hard to, where do we start? Because currently you are serving full-time as a professor at Southern Vermont College. But we first met when during your practice as one of the premier prosecutors here in the Capital Region, being affiliated with the Albany County District Attorney's Office. And some of the highlights, of course, included when you were serving as bureau chief for the major crimes unit as well, which certainly brought you into a variety of different cases, some celebrated cases that even occurred here in the town of Colonie. Yes. And tell us about how you got involved in the District Attorney's Office after you graduated from our own Albany Law School.
Okay, so what happened is I met a lawyer. His name was Paul Devane, and he said he was the clerk of the Albany County Legislature, and he wanted to know if I wanted to. I was looking for a job. I was looking for a job after my second year of law school, and he wanted to know if I wanted to work for him part-time in his law office and then do something else for the county. So one thing led to another, and I realized the county spot he was talking about was a spot in the Albany County District Attorney's Office. Now, I'm a kid from Queens. Well, I don't know anything from Albany. I probably didn't even know the district attorney's name, but it sounded like a great experience for a summer intern. It was going to be a 10-week experience, and I said, I would love that. I would love that. So I went and I met Saul Greenberg, and it's unbelievable, but that was 1982. And that was my introduction. So I worked as a summer law student. We were paid $80 a week. It was big money back then. Right. And actually it was something. It was something, but the experience I soon realized was going to be like something I had never imagined. And after the summer, I was hired on as a clerk for my third year, and then when I graduated, I was hired. Well,
Renee, back in May 2013, the largest gathering I have ever seen at the Albany County Courthouse came together because of your expected retirement from full-time work in the Albany County District Attorney's Office. It was truly standing room only there in the first floor of the county courthouse. And during your comments to those of us who gathered that night, you mentioned Dan Dyer as a mentor of yours. And tell us a little bit about Dan and his relationship and how he was part of your development.
So Dan was the chief prosecutor for the Albany County District Attorney's Office. He was the chief assistant district attorney, and although Saul Greenberg was the district attorney, Dan was involved, Saul was an administrative district attorney, had a very big role in the office, certainly, but Dan was the one trying all those big cases. So on our first day of work, the interns would meet Dan, and we would be fascinated by the fact that here was the man who was really the man in the office, and he wanted to know what we really thought. He'd give us a file, he'd ask us our thoughts on it, and finally, one day I said to him, because he had such an interest in us, like, does it really matter, like, what I think? I mean, isn't it what you think that's important, and he would tell us that, as far as he was concerned, his eyes had become, as far as he was concerned, somewhat, he couldn't trust them as well anymore. They'd become somewhat cynical, and that he wanted a fresh look at things, and therefore he was always going to be being with the clerks, asking the clerks for their opinions, wanting to work closely with the clerks. It's not a lot of offices where the chief assistant is like the supervisor of the law students. That was unusual. And it's because Dan was a true mentor. You know, whatever all the things that word means, he was interested in who we are. He gave us unbelievable experience. I was telling the folks that night who graciously gathered. You know, that was the first time I ever went to a country club was with Dan Dyer. I was like, man, what are people doing here? And he goes, just this is what they do. You know what I mean? And he was someone who just loved people, and he loved students, and he loved being with students. And he was an adjunct at the law school. He was in charge of the program that I now have been in charge of for many years. He had a real interest in reaching back. That's what I say. He reached back. There was no reason. He didn't know us. He just reached back and encouraged us, and he was like a father figure to many of us.
Well, he certainly has quite a celebrated reputation, and of course, we here in the town of Colonie are always proud to know that he was a resident of this town, and that he shared so much of himself in the practice of law in many ways. And Saul Greenberg has been a guest on this show previously, and he spoke similarly about the impact of Dan Dyer on the district attorney's office and on the practice of law in general. And what I think is so commendable is that you recognized a quality in him about mentoring young law students, that you have done that yourself now throughout your practice. You've always made time for taking others on to show young people about the practice of law, about being an effective prosecutor, about being a good person as well. And you've done that because someone did that for you, which is oftentimes rare that people extend the acts of kindness that were given to them to others. And I know you've done it because my own daughter was under your mentorship while at Albany Law School, and she has it made her interest in the practice of law even keener because of your involvement with her and treating her at an elevated level right from the get-go. And you've done what Dan Dyer did.
Thank you.
Well, it's certainly, and you continue to do that today. You're still involved with the district attorney's office in at least in doing a mentoring program and in presenting a teacher's court. And tell us how that works.
Yes, so I am actually, I had to, after I resigned, you know, you have to sign that book down there in the clerk's office, and so my tenure was done when I retired. I actually had to re-sign the book. I signed it with a young student who now says that we started on the same day, a young assistant district attorney who's been in the office like, you know, a year and a half. It's actually quite funny. But I had to re-sign because we started a new undertaking at the DA's office where the New Scotland Court, which was one of the courts I had in these recent years, we call it the teaching court, and we bring law students there to plea bargain like minor traffic cases under the supervision of myself. We have law students doing hearings there and doing traffic trials there, and we also bring college students there. We just did this past Thursday night, and we have a panel of criminal justice speakers. I bring my students from Southern Vermont College. Judge Atkins brings her students from Siena, and we interact. We do some plea bargaining in front of them, live plea bargaining. We do. We have the Rick Bernardo come in and Bill Bernardo come in and talk about bail, and to really have the students breathe the air in the places they're going to be going to if they're going to be lawyers in the system, or they're going to be cops in the system, or they're going to be probation officers in the system, alternatives to incarceration people in the system. And it's so good for us because it keeps it fresh. And we have Matt Hoff there. Different DAs come in and tell their stories and connect with students, and it really is, it's alive. the law's alive.
Well, you continue to do that, and you continue to share your capacity in a variety of educational systems. You've taught at Hudson Valley, St. Rose, Siena College. You've taught for the state court system, and you continue to do so. Some of your duties when you were in the district attorney's office, of course, many celebrated high-profile cases came through the major offenses unit, and you were the chief of that unit certainly during the 90s as well. And some of those cases, certainly now long closed, were front-page stories in and around the capital region and the state of New York. And I recall that there might have been one where it was a murder, which ultimately involved the town of Colonie, and it's possible that the victim was actually found here in the town of Colonie, and your investigation, together with all of the police agencies, ultimately brought a defendant to trial and a conviction as well.
I think I know the case you're referring to, that victim who was found in Shaker Bay, that lovely development here in the town of Colonie.
Right.
And actually, it was a conviction, but the defendant ended up pleading guilty, which was it's kind of unusual for a murder case. But as you said, it was, we're always looking toward, even in, especially in those high-profile cases, what does the victim's family really want? And that was what they wanted. They wanted to hear that defendant allocute to what happened in the last minutes of that victim's life, and he did. Whether or not it was truthful, we have no way of knowing because there was only two people there. But that was something that was very important to that particular family, and it was something that we were able to do, which was good. It comes to mind too another case in the town of Colonie, and I'm sure you'll remember this, and I can't recall the defendant's name, but he was a young man who was a handyman for an older woman in the town of Colonie, and he ended up murdering her. And then he went to Ohio, and he murdered another elderly gentleman who he was a handyman for. And we actually extradited him here to Albany County to face the music, and he was convicted in county court of murdering her. And it was kind of an interesting case because at that time, I want to say Mario Cuomo was the governor, and they didn't want to give us, I can't remember his last name, they didn't want to turn him over to us. We had to guarantee we were going to return him because they had the death penalty in Ohio.
All right.
And they wanted to make sure this wasn't like a ruse on our part to hold him in jail after a murder conviction for the remainder of his natural life. Like, they wanted him back.
Right.
So he did go back, but that was another case where I remember he was holed up in the Lawrence Motel on Central Avenue in the town of Colonie. Drugs and terrible circumstance. He went to her house in the middle of the night and demanded money, and eventually got money, but returned. And his excellent police work from the town of Colonie. Patty Lockhart, working with that woman she realized he had killed someone, and turning her around and helping her get out of that drug problem and stuff. Just a superior work of the Colonie Police Department led to another murder conviction. Just, the lives of people, and that victim, the son of that victim would be, he'd come into the office, and I began to feel like he was like part of the office for a while. Just such an interest in seeing that justice was done, for his loved one. And that's, those are the people you still think about. Just one other story, because all of a sudden all these stories are popping into my mind. When I have 15-year-old twin girls, and when they were born, and I stepped into a different position in the DA's office so I could be home with them during the day. I went to my door one day, and there were these two ladies standing there whose brother, and the other one was a friend of that woman, was a murder victim in a case I had in the city of Albany. And they had a big package. And the case was long older, and I said, "Hey, Rosemary, what's going on?" And she goes, "We have a present for your girls." And they brought in two, like, white, they were almost like baptismal gowns that someone had made that were like, that I still have, that I'll have, that the girls will have for the rest of their lives, just to show their appreciation. But I felt as if I had become like a member of their family. That's what it was. They just like my sister-in-law Joanne and Penny will be knitting blankets for all the children who are born. Somebody in their family had done this for me because of the relationship we had established. So those are the kinds of things I think I most remember from those years, and they're very important things. And
yes, they are, and you recognize the humanity involved. And it really underscores, stories like this, the way you share them with us, underscores your commitment to access to justice and the impact of what crime can do, not only on a single victim, but on the community as well. And I know that in your classes that you teach at Southern Vermont, that you're constantly trying to stimulate the thought process of your students to ensure that access to justice and is probably one of the most significant concepts that you can convey. Tell me what kind of classes you're currently teaching there.
so this semester, I'm teaching the Intro to Criminal Justice class, which is actually very interesting. You have kids who think, we have 3 tracks at Southern Vermont: law enforcement, law, and corrections, who think they might want to be involved in criminal justice. I'm seeing now some other students too, like we have some psychology students, we have a couple of business students who are taking it as an elective. But by and large, we have kids just on the bottom floor wondering what the heck is going on in the criminal justice system. They think they want to be a part of it. Every TV show you turn on TV has something to do with it, and they have an interest in it, or somebody in their family's interested in it. So I'm teaching the intro level in criminal justice. This semester I'm also teaching criminal law. We look at statutes and statutory construction and what makes assault in the 3rd degree different than assault in the 1st degree. And I'm also teaching an issues of law course, which is which I call the advanced policing course. We're looking at issues that face police today. Intelligence-led policing and police and the mentally ill. We've had several police chiefs come. We've had your own police chief, Steve Hyder, who was great with the kids, come in and speak. Craig Apple came. Steve Krokoff is going to join us this week to talk about what kind of a police officer do you want on your force today. That's also different than other times. And we try to, as much as possible in these classes, bring the system to the students, but then we also try and bring the students to the system, because I want to say to them all the time, and we're very just like the law school is so practice oriented. Our office is practice oriented. Like Carol Crummey was a field placement student with us who kept coming back because she was interested in being in that courtroom. She wanted to be doing her own hearings, all that experience. And even as she went and, we tried to hire her first, and then that firm got her, darn it. But even that firm, when they called to say that this student has already been lawyering, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. So at Southern Vermont, we have this practicum placement, which many colleges have, where the police folks ride along, and they are helping. They're seeing what it's like to breathe the air. Because if you don't know what it's like to breathe the air, you might get out of college and realize, you know what? I don't know if I really want to do this. So that's the kind of experience we're trying to give students, because that's the kind of experiences they're going to need. Yeah.
Well, it's a dynamic program that you're involved with, and they're certainly fortunate to have you there, just as Albany Law School is, and Siena College, Hudson Valley, and you even, in connection with St. Rose, I believe you are you work with them on their mock trial team. Tell me about that.
I got to tell you, this is unbelievable. The American Mock Trial Association. Now, you never heard of that when you were in college.
Right.
I know, because it wasn't around. Right. These are college students, okay, who are amazing. So it's this national mock trial. The problem is, I tell you, you would look at this, I looked at this problem the first time, I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
Right.
This is so complicated. We're gonna give this to college students, and we're gonna have them actually conduct, these cross-examinations, these direct examinations, these opening, closing statements, all these experts. This one, this particular year, it's a shooting of an 11-year-old by an 11-year-old to see whether or not, this is, grabbed right out of the headlines.
You bet.
To see whether or not we're going to hold the parents civilly responsible for negligent supervision or intentional shooting. It is mind-blowing. And I was fortunate enough, under the professor there, Al Chaplot, he asked me to come on and be the coach of their mock trial team. So Al and I worked with another law student who helped, also Mike Wetmore, and we worked with them. These kids are superheroes.
Well,
they took this fact pattern, St. Rose, second time. We're in the Northeast, right? Could we have been in a harder area of the country? Yale, Cornell, Wellesley. These names, I'm like, BC, Boston University, Northeastern. And 26 schools went to this Northeast regional competition last March. And St. Rose, little St. Rose, I think they placed 14th out of 26 schools. This was only their second year. Unbelievable. And we're working on the last year it was a criminal case, so it was a little bit, I had a little ease with that, having never really been a civil practitioner. So this is a little different, but these kids are going at it with the same vigor, and we're hoping for perhaps an even better result. It's just been incredible, and to watch. I had one of my daughters who's interested in the law there. By the end of the weekend, they're being eliminated. There's all these trials.
You bet.
So by the end of the weekend, my daughter Hannah is whispering in my ear, "That's hearsay." It's irrelevant. I'm like, whoa. Because you know why? Because she's breathing the air.
You bet. Well, I think that certainly the success of St. Rose is due to the talented students that they have, but also surely practicing under your guidance and bringing them forward, and the energy that you bring to the education process. It's contagious, and I believe students learn best by a professor or a teacher or a mentor who is excited about what is going on. So you get their attention that way. And I even know that our own Shaker Junior High School, we do a mock trial together. Seth Harris, the son of Judge Harris, who you practiced before many times as a district attorney. Seth has started a program there 7 years ago, and I've served as the judge each year.
Excellent.
And it, as you said, you can't believe the talent and industry and capacity of even 7th grade students in dealing with these complicated constitutional law issues that they develop in a trial. It's fascinating. And I always go home and smile because I know that the practice of law is in a good place with so many people of junior high, high school, and college actively engaged in that thought process. And it doesn't mean that they all have to be lawyers.
No, it doesn't.
It just means that they're better citizens and they can react to the issues in a much more thorough way, having that interaction with you.
Yes, I got to tell you, I think I always get the best part of it, because I got to tell you, you think back about being in school, it was fun. We had fun, but these students seem particularly motivated. I'm not sure I could have been on any of these teams.
Right.
These students are motivated, and so you feel like they're in it to win it. They're really in it, and you can really, you can bring. You can bring something. And it's funny, I don't know if we ever spoke about this, but Carol was on that Albany Academy mock trial team when Larry Wiest and I, who was another mentor of mine at the office, was on that team. And I used to, Larry, the enthusiasm he brought to that, I was like, man, Larry, you think you were trying to murder in there, because that's the kind of, and it was contagious. That year, that mock trial team I think came in like third in the state.
Yes, they did.
That was the first year they ever, because it's like contagious, back and forth, and hardworking kids, somebody who really like wants to be there, and it's great. It is great, and I loved what you said about citizens. You know, many of these students. You know, students who come and take my courses as electives, or even the ones that think they are involved in law enforcement or law or whatever, and they don't. You know, they got to know. You know, they're taxpayers.
You bet.
And then they're in society, and these things are happening in their society, and they got to know. They have to know what's going on. So I think it's you know, it's a great way for them to find out.
Well, you're the consummate educator, and you continue to bring that energy to so many different venues, and we're also very lucky that you continue to do that. And as you move forward now, and looking at, you practiced as a prosecutor among other venues of practice for over 30 years, and certainly being the bureau chief of the major offense unit in the Albany County District Attorney's Office. Have you seen the practice of prosecution change during your practice period? Has it changed?
Yes, it has. I think, you know, we when I first started, we had two very, very tough judges in Albany County. And we were dealing with social problems that, I remember that in Albany County, if you made a drug sale in Albany County, there was you were going to prison. No matter how small the sale was, it didn't matter. That was the rule. You were going to prison. So there were lots of people making lots of little drug sales, and we had the Rockefeller drug laws, which have now sort of been backed way away from, if not completely eliminated. But we did have a different system then. We had a system that had only really one major way of dealing with felony crime, and that was to lock people up. And over the last 30 years, what I've seen is something that I think has really been a breath of fresh air to the system. Because look, make no mistake about it, there are people who are committing crime that need to be locked up, and we'll continue to lock them up. But there are other people, we now realize there's these other systems and these other conditions that interface with the criminal justice system, like the mentally ill, the chemically addicted. You know, we have courts today for drug court, we have mental health court, and we have domestic violence court. There are areas of the population, there are particular kinds of crime that need like the specialist, like the same reason why we have bankruptcy courts, right, in federal practice, because of all those regulations, and we want somebody who's right on top of this, and you know, so we have this specialized court. Well, when you have domestic violence court, you have a court which is handling all kinds of cases that may involve the same people. But instead of me having to call Judge Maney or to find out what's going on in my, you know, I have a case, a criminal case for some kind of a domestic violence situation, and Judge Maney's got that family in there on some kind of other action, and some other court has them for something else. The Supreme Court is handling the, I mean, how could that be the best system? Is that the best we can do? Well, it's not. And now the system, the Office of Court Administration is recognizing, wow, maybe we should have all those issues being decided in the same place.
Right.
And I think it's really making our justice system more receptive to the needs of our society, as well as the victims, as well as some defendants who are getting caught up in the web of something that they could have never imagined. And so I think our justice system is more just. You know, it looked just then. I don't want to, you know, give the wrong idea. We believed, you know, we were weighing each case. We were you know, using those prosecutorial factors about, you know, what the reasons, what kind of prior criminal history the person had, what kind of other issues were going on, but we're doing it more, and it's better.
Well, the legacy continues. Renee Merges continues to move us all forward in viewing how the practice of law and the application of law is for our community and our society. And you keep teaching young people to think about these same issues, which will make a better community for all of us. I'm also very pleased that during the course of your practice, you also decided that you would get a New York State teaching certificate, and in connection with all of the duties that you were considering and involved with at that time, you often used our Colonie Town Library as a study space to continue to advance your own interest in education.
Absolutely. This very building, when I walked in this morning, I was thinking to myself, wow, this was like such a quiet, peaceful place, and it was great. I have fond memories of the library. It's a great spot. I love Colonie. It was great when I went back from after my girls were born, and who was the judge in the town of Colonie? Peter Crummey. I was like, this is the best.
That's right.
And
I think I did my first jury trial with you.
You did, and it was very comforting, because here I was, I'm coming from major crimes back to local court. Like, I found out, like, the first night I was here, like, we were going to be prosecuting something called aggravated unlicensed operation, and I said to the DA here then, like, what the heck is that? And he was like, look, why don't you just do something else for a while? But coming back to see there was like, okay, Peter Crummey's here. We're going to be able to. You're going to be able to transition back to this, you know. And I wanted to say one other thing that made me think while you were talking. You know, we even at the DA's office this summer, David Soar said to me, you know, we got a couple of high school students interested in criminal justice, and I got a high school student at home. I said, really? And even high school students, 6 or 7 of them, we put them through like a little program. They rode along with the police. They went to family court. They watched the whole felony trial. They went to the Children's Resource Center right here on Pearl Street about kids who were involved in and they learned. Even at that level about our system, and it's kind of funny, like I was saying, one of them, like when it was over, they wrote their final reflection. He said, well, you know, I've really enjoyed this internship, but I'm pretty certain now this is something I'm never going to want to do. You know, and I thought to myself, isn't it great that you found out when you're a junior in high school?
Exactly.
Instead of graduating from college. So I do think these internships, this is very important. Now that kid can go and find something else that he really feels a passion about doing, as you and I have felt about the passion of law. You know, and talking about somebody who's, you know, I hate to interview the interviewer here, but I mean, talking about somebody who's animated, you're the king of animation. I know you've come in and talked to our students at the DA's office in the Greenberg room there, and you know, the quintessential local judge with you know, something to say, and I remember that day you wanted to let them know that they were beginning their professional reputations when they set foot in your court. It didn't matter what they're, and you know what? Those kids took away from that. Right. And that's the kind of message I think we have to be giving to students about you know, what kind of, not about what kind of lawyer you are. Let's start with like, what kind of person you are. Because maybe our profession really wants you even more if you're the kind of person who's going to have a community, some kind of a community connection, a community awareness, and a love of the community. And so I think that's, you know, that's.
Well, thank you, Renee Merges. Thank you for continuing to educate all of us as we move forward. I'm sure it won't be long before I have to have you back on this show, because you keep moving forward and adding so many other opportunities in your life which benefit all of us. Thank you for joining us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's great. Thank you so much.
I'm Colonie Town Judge Peter Crummey, and thank you for joining me on Benchmark.